Welcome back to Pop Culture Warrior. I am your host, and ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a very special guest with us. He is an accomplished Emmy award-winning actor known for numerous roles, including Barry Allen / The Flash in the original 1990 series. He played Henry Allen and Jay Garrick in the CW's The Flash reboot. He's also beloved for his role as Mitch Leery in Dawson's Creek. Let's not waste any time. I mean, I could read this guy's bio all day, but you know what? Let's just dive right into this fascinating journey in his world into acting and television. Please welcome everyone, the incredibly talented John Wesley Shipp, everybody.
Hey. How are you, CQ?
They're going crazy. They're going crazy for you.
I can hear him.
First of all, thank you so much for being here tonight and doing this. It is a great honor. I'm a huge fan, both from way back the original to modern day. You're awesome, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's get right to it because I mean, there's so much to cover, and I want to get to as much of it as possible. I'll give you the same question we ask every guest we have right out the gate. What is, if you have, your military connection?
Well, my uncle was in Korea. I mean, does that count? I have friends who are in the military. I have a lot of actually connections in law enforcement. A very good friend of mine, Chris Garabino, was a first responder at 9/11. He now lives in North Carolina. So if he's listening, hello, Chris. And yeah, I played a gunnery sergeant on JAG. So he was a pretty badass character, actually. I did JAG twice, but it was the first time I did it. This gunnery sergeant Granger, and yeah.
See, and you were so nervous, like, I don't have you have a connection. It's subtle. But you get family, the roles, but it's there. It's a great connection.
I'm not in the military, but I have played one on TV.
It's like I'm not a member, but I've played one on TV.
First of all, to all the veterans watching, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude and appreciation. Thank you both for being here and for your service. And that's not lip service. That's for real.
Listen, if you took the time to be on this show, it's definitely not lip service. All right. We appreciate it. We joke all the time. We're like, look, Tom Cruise ain't coming on this show. Okay. People they go, they're big deal. But like the people that appreciate it, like taking the time out and doing this, it shows more than anything that you want to take the time to sit and chat with us, and that's so awesome of you. So thank you for that. And like I said to you earlier, this is a pop culture show, so we talk about all the nerdy and geeky things and the love, the passion, that same feeling you get at a Comic-Con. That's what we're all about here. So let me ask you, as we get to know you, what do you geek out about? What's the thing that you love, that you're passionate about?
Well, I've been in this franchise for 34 years. You know what I mean? 34? Yeah, just about that. I've played 5 different characters on 4 different shows across 3 different networks over 34 years. I've been myself, Barry Allen. I have voiced Professor Zoom, my own worst enemy. I played my father, Henry Allen, on the new show, and then I was my mentor, Jay Garrick. So, and then I brought Flash 90 back. So it's been quite an introduction to this wacky, wonderful, crazy world of pop culture that we're here to talk about. And that's, what I really enjoy vis-a-vis this franchise is, you mentioned earlier when we were talking, you mentioned conventions. The ability, I think conventions really serve a great sort of purpose, in our society, because we leave everything at the door. We check our egos, our religion, our politics. We check everything at the door, and we come in and we get to relate to each other person to person. I can't tell you the things that I have been told, personal things, deeply personal things, as well as the celebratory part of it, by meeting people who, for one reason or another, have found the Flash or some element of my work through the years meaningful. So Yeah, I get very excited. I'm not one of those that sits there and signs and never looks up. I'm like up, I'm down, I'm up and down. It's I love to engage. Love to engage.
It's so true, and honestly, you can tell, and this is something we've talked about on this show and in other places that um, and I mean this to no offense to the people out there, but there are people that, hey, they're there to make a living. They're there to cash a check. They're there to do what it is to stay in the relevancy. But then there's those people that you can just tell when you're sitting there and watching them and talking and interacting, like they love it, if not as much as maybe even more than you, a chance. Because I can imagine being an actor, especially unlike, let's say, like a play where you get that instant feedback.
You get the feedback.
Being on camera, it's you're putting it out there and then just hoping it lands. And now this is your opportunity to talk to the people and say, no, I got it. It hit me. It landed, and you get that feedback, right?
Right, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, The Flash was, what was The Flash? 50 years old in comics by the time I got to it in 1990. So when I first started going to conventions, I was well aware that there were many people among the hundreds in my, sometimes thousands in my Q&As and my panels that knew more about the character than I did. So I would often turn the question around. I also never liked just sitting up. It's like there's this invisible barrier. I'd drive them crazy because I would always want a wireless mic, and I would go out into the audience, and take questions, and I would probe people. I'd say, well, why the Flash? Why specifically the Flash? He's not particularly a badass. He's not a vigilante. What is it about the Flash that draws you specifically to that character? And then we even get more granular when they'll ask me, what's your favorite episode of all the characters you've played? I'll say, well, what's yours? Why? How old were you when you bonded with this character? People's reactions. I've been an actor for 45 years professionally. Okay. And I remember once there was the very beautiful woman, actually. She was head of finances for this convention that I did, and so tailored and so professional. And she came and she introduced herself, and she actually first found out about me from Guiding Light in the 80s. And we hugged, and she broke down in my arms. And I'm doing the math. Okay, if we're talking Guiding Light, that was X number of years ago. She was probably 14, 15 years old. And then where my mind goes is, I wonder what was going on in her life that caused her to project onto the character that I was playing certain characteristics that were so meaningful to her. So I can't tell you. I have people say, I watched the original Flash with my father, and now I'm watching the CW Flash with my kids, and you're the thread that weaves through that. And, I get choked up. I'm like, I say, stop, or we're both going to be standing here crying. Okay. And that's so not cool.
It's not a good look for a superhero. Come on now.
Not a good look. Not a good look. Although Barry's he's a pretty sensitive guy.
He's a sensitive guy. We love him for it.
Yeah.
So touching on cons, because I'm always fascinated by the people that go and do these things. Any crazy stories that you can share? Any wild experiences? Only because I've had people come on and say, like, somebody gave me their so-and-so's ashes as a gift, or doing the tattooed name, or any. I'm sure you get some pretty interesting happenings at your booth.
About the most interesting thing that immediately leaps to mind, people are always giving me things. Of course, a funny one is on Dawson's Creek. My character in the 5th season was killed in a car crash. There was a lot of trouble going on, and then the clouds parted and everything's fine. And I'm singing along to the radio, eating an ice cream cone, and the ice cream goes down, and I go to get it, and then bam, I'm gone. So I have had people bring me ice cream cone pins. I'm like, that's funny. It's dark, but it's funny. It's pretty funny. But I remember in Mexico City, God, that was a huge convention, 150,000 people. And there was a guy who stood off to one side with a mold of clay. And while I was talking to people, he was molding in fact, I have it in the office. He was molding a likeness of me, a bust of me in clay. And then by about the second day it finished, he showed it to me. He said, "Now I'm going to go bake this in the oven and finish it and and he gave that to me as a gift, you know."
Wow.
But yeah, I have so much flashabilia. You know, it's like my office is like wall to wall, either action figures. That was a trip. The first action figure was the Mattel Flash, Barry Allen, of me. And someone brought it, and there I am. I'm like, it took me 60 years, but I'm an action figure. You know, that was a surreal experience. And now, of course, there's a Jay Garrick pop, there's a Jay Garrick figure this big. There was the molded limited edition Barry Allen. Uh, yeah, so it's amazing to me, really.
I can only imagine what that is like to see your likeness in the 6 inch and the 12 inch and the Funko Pop and all that. Like, it's got to be trippy.
It is. It is. But like with the clay model of it was a limited edition. I don't know if they did 1,000, whatever they did, but they were all numbered. But I mean, they got my broken nose. I mean, from 3/4 angle, I would think that was a mini me. You know, I mean, the detail is so specific, and they're so beautifully crafted. You know, many of them. But
That's wild.
it's a trip. It's how did I end up here? Because truthfully, I was not a comic book fan growing up. You know, I have to be honest. When they said to me in 1989 that there was going to be this show, they were looking for an actor. They said The Flash. I said, "You mean Flash Gordon?" Of course, now I act highly insulted if anyone says that.
Right.
It's like,
Of course.
no, The Flash, get it right. And just to step into this world and to end up playing so many different parts over such a long time, it's been a fascinating experience.
I can't imagine. So let's take a pause and rewind the tape. Let's go back
Yeah.
early. Let's go back to the start of your career. Kind of paint us a picture. I mean, when did the passion for acting start? What was the early days like for you?
Well, I started as a music major at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, and after a couple years of that, I switched. No, 1 year of that, I switched to the theater department with a minor in music, and then I dropped out. I did summer theater in Michigan with a professor and his girlfriend who were moving to New York, and they said, "Listen, if you go back to school, go to school in New York so you can be making your professional contacts while you're training." So I moved up to New York a sophomore in college, drop out. Probably shouldn't say that. Kids stay in school.
Of course.
Whatever, do what you have to do. Uh, and scared my parents to death, really, truthfully, because my dad had struggled so hard to get his education after he had 3 kids, working 2 jobs, and so that scared them a lot. But I sort of moved up with a family. It was Mark Bego, Lynn Thigpen, CCH Pounder, Peter Saputo. So we were all, I came up in the late 70s, moved to New York, and they said, "This is how you do it. You get a Ross reports, you get a list of all the agents, you make the rounds, you give them your headshots, you follow it up with a phone call, you follow it up with a postcard, you do workshops for no money, you wait tables because that's a flexible job." And I did that for about 2.5 years, and finally got an agent. And the first job that signaled the end of my actor waiter days. And if there are actors out there that are supporting themselves by waiting tables, I always say, you're an actor. If you're training, if you're studying, if that's your passion, I don't care what you're doing to support yourself. If that's your passion, that's what you are. It's like, someone will come up to me and say, "I'm an actor." "Well, I'm waiting tables." I go, "No, no, 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 no. Do you study? Do you train? Do you take it seriously? You're an actor. But anyway, I did showtimes first original movie for television. I'm a relic. Showtime doesn't even exist anymore, you know? But they did a best of off-Broadway series, Passion of Dracula, Me and My Girl, and The Dirtiest Show in Town, which was by this iconic writer out of La Mama and Wonder Horse Theater, Experimental Theater in Lower Manhattan. And my grandmother was like, of the three, did you have to pick The Dirtiest Show in Town? I'm like, that's the one they offered me. The next month, I was cast as Kelly Nelson on Guiding Light, and they got letters. There was this one woman who wrote every couple of months, don't you know that he was in a show called Showtime, and there was part nudity, and there was this, and there was that. But luckily, they didn't fire me. And so that was the beginning of the career. I was good guy Kelly Nelson. Kevin Bacon was my dressing room mate and my rival for the affections of the young leading lady at the time. And then I jumped over to World Turns. The writer from Guiding Light knew that there was more to me than just running around in a Speedo and singing You Needed Me, because that's what I did for 3 years on Guiding Light, you know. And he wrote this wild part opposite Julianne Moore. And I started this really good guy, the answer to all her hopes and dreams, and then I turned into this complete, crazed, unhinged psychotic, kidnapped her, and you know, and I mean, and ended up being stabbed in the back with a crystal cylinder during a whole violent scene up there. But you know, that was how I got my first Emmy. So played a good guy for 3.5 years, never nominated. Played a psycho for 10 months. My first Emmy. And then the following year, I went to Santa Barbara to play a very abusive to women tennis player with Marcy Walker. A. Martinez threw me through a plate glass window and busted my knee, could never play tennis again, cried. That's the key. And, you know, if you could try to redeem a real bad guy. And that was my second Emmy. And then after that, it just kind of rolled out. I did Broadway, did a play with Harvey Fierstein. I want a T-shirt that said, I survived Harvey. That's a joke, actually, because Harvey is a great guy and was wonderful to work with. And then I did off Broadway, and then finally the call came to do Neverending Story 2, and then that guy brought me to LA and became my manager. And then The Flash was shortly thereafter. I was cast in 1990, and it's just, I could go on and on. It's been 45 years. How much time do we, but
so then
that's how it started.
No, I mean,
everyone's like, hey.
No, they come here for this specific conversation. It's fascinating because, for as much as we know you from one thing or love you from another thing, there's so much there. I have such a respect for actors because very, very few is it ever like, oh, my first thing was this big thing. A lot of actors have to work at it and be in the business and beat the streets and do those parts and the day player and the background guy and
listen, my very first job, my big break, I was finally on television, New York. And I was gonna be like an under 5 on One Life to Live, I think it was. And what did it? I said, I'm going to be there. No, that was an extra, but my face was going to be on TV, right? You want to know the only way they knew it was me? Because you saw me, like that much of me. And I walked through the scene, and the only way you knew it was me was I was wearing my own sweater. The second thing, I was going to do an under 5 on All My Children, and I had this big scene with Susan Lucci. It was more than 5 lines. It was one scene. And that was a scene with her, and, we were going to, and so we did the dress rehearsal, the camera blocking, and I'm sitting in the makeup room waiting for the taping, and the director comes in and he says, I don't know how to say this, but the show's long and we had to cut your scene. And so that was my second experience. But Susan and I went on to do Fantasy Island together. I circled back to All My Children after Flash 1990 to play another psychotic for 5 or 6 months. Susan swears, because Susan's like 5 feet tall, that when I met her on the set of Fantasy Island, I said, "Oh, but you're so tiny," and I picked her up by the elbows and started doing shoulder press. I said, "Susan, I did not do that." She said, "Yes, you did. Yes, you did." I said, "All right, maybe I did."
I mean,
But yeah, it's
leave a mark.
been, you have to just keep at it, if it's your passion.
That's amazing. My claim to fame is I grew up in New York City, and as a high school student, I was walking down the street, and they were shooting an episode of NYPD Blue, and so I'm walking in the background of a shot on TV. So yes, I also have a couple credits.
I did NYPD Blue. I played a drug addicted cop first season. And
There you go.
I showed more of me than I ever figured I would ever show in prime time. That was the big deal. Everybody was naked from the back on NYPD Blue that season. So that was another one my grandmother wasn't fond of. But oh well. Emma Bryant in Virginia Beach, Virginia. She was
Oh
like,
God.
"Oh, what are Ruth and Wilma gonna say about this?"
I love it. So let's see. Let's see. And we do have a couple questions in the chat. So here, let's get to one of them. From Thanos. It looks like, "Hey John, hugs from Chai and me." I guess maybe you know
All
them.
right.
Wanted to ask a question that I had originally had for you and Danny. If The Flash had gone second season, who would you have wanted to work with in the cast? Like, I guess, who would you would have wanted to bring in the cast?
Good Lord. When you stop and first of all, kudos to our casting director, April Webster, multiple Emmy Award winning cast director, lost in so many things. She's now iconic, but I mean, our guest stars were Angela Bassett, Bryan Cranston, Michael Champion, David, he played the Mirror Master. Anyway, it was just one after. Jerry Ryan was one of our. So Joyce Heiser. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. We had such great guest stars because when we premiered in 1990, there hadn't been a treatment of a superhero show taken seriously, for adults before on television. We were being developed on the back lot at Warner Brothers at the same time as Tim Burton's Batman, around a new aesthetic, a way to tell these stories and to take the people inside the suits seriously, not spoof them. There was comedy. I'm not saying it was realistic, but we aimed to be truthful within the parameters, of our story. And so a lot of people wanted to do our show. And of course, Mark Hamill, actually, from what I just learned from Danny, because he's a huge comic book fan, and he had said, if you ever do the Trickster, and it just so happened they were developing a treatment for the Trickster, and he came in and blew the roof off of that role, for 2 episodes. Yeah, so it's just been, I don't know. It would have been fascinating to find out
To
who
see
might
who.
have shown up.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine where it could have gone. So speaking about that, obviously, playing Barry Allen, the Flash in the 1990 series, and then getting to come back and do Henry Allen and Jay Garrick in the CW version. What was it like? I can't imagine for you stepping back into this kind of world, even though it's not the same character, but it's in that world of that character, and you're conversing with that character. I mean, what was it like for you coming back after so many years to that part?
First of all, dude, in 1990 and 1991, the suits were not as user friendly, shall we say. And so I was like, it was very difficult. It was very hot. It was glued to my face. The hours were unbelievable because we had to do live action practical effects, which a lot of shows are going back to now. People want to see, and they want to know that, our awesome stunt people are risking their lives for what they're seeing on screen. And to that end, a shout out to my stuntman on Flash 1990, Dane Farwell, who was a remarkable guy, both a solid presence on the set. It's like, but we would be in at 7 in the morning on Monday. We'd work till 10 at night. We come 10 on Tuesday, work till 2 a.m. Wednesday. We'd come in at 2 p.m. By Wednesday, we were working all night. By Thursday and Friday, we were tenting in the back lot at Warner Brothers to shoot day for night. And the studio executives would be coming to work and we'd be going home. And you guys are out of your mind. So it just took so much time in those days that by the time I got to the end of a 22 episode season, I was beat because we didn't have a big cast like the CW Flash. We had Amanda Pays, Alex Dazaire, and me, and then our guest stars, Julio, Tita McGee, Barry Allen. And so I remember we were shooting The Trial of the Trickster, the very last scene, and we were always in some location in Southeast Los Angeles because the art direction was very specific. We were actually Emmy nominated for art direction. It was like 40s, 50s, 60s meets 90s. It's like the 60s had never happened, which when you stop and think about it, it's kind of my experience. Did it happen? Yeah. But yeah, so we were there and we were fighting the sun coming up one more time, trying to get the shot done before it's too bright to shoot it. And they finally yell cut. I'm in this suit, I'm soaking wet. One more time, they yell cut on the final scene. I ripped the wings off and threw them in the air. Mark Hamill almost lost his mind. He was like, don't let him get away. He was climbing over cables and around garbage cans. He got the wings, or at least he got one of them, because Danny said he has the other one. And I swore I would never get into another superhero suit as long as I live. Well, never say never, but I love the way it came about. It came about in a really organic way. When I had heard how Jeff Johns had kind of blown up the Allen family, how suddenly Henry Allen was wrongfully convicted of killing his wife in front of his 10-year-old son and had been in Iron Heights prison for 14 years. I'm like, what? The great iconic Emmett Walsh, who we recently lost within the last year, played my father. Well, he was not wrongfully convicted of killing Priscilla Pointer in front of it. That wasn't my origin story. And so I was like, well, that's dark. That's interesting. I was like, if they might want to have completely their own thing. If they would have, I would have been fine. I had been the only live action Flash representing for 24 years. That's a long time. I would have gladly, but I heard about the new Henry Allen. I said, if they come to me, that's the role I would want. Because, yeah, it's the same franchise, but it's a completely new character and a completely different origin story. And I knew a couple of things. If Barry was the only one who knew I was innocent, and I'm in prison, and all of our scenes are in Iron Heights, I knew it would carve out a really special place in the midst of an action adventure show. Right. For Grant and I. Everyone was saying, Jay Garrick, we want you. I said, I understand why you're saying that. You want the torch passed. I said, but they're doing it in a less on the nose way. It's a father-son blessing, the hand on the glass, so that we'd reach a fever pitch, it's all this action, the wonderful special effects they can do now. And then suddenly we do an establishing shot of Iron Heights. The lights would go down, the music would get quiet. Grant Gustin and I would walk into that telephone booth there in the prison, pick up the phone receivers, look at each other and tell the truth. And it was such a unique experience he knew I had been the Flash, I knew that he was taking on a huge iconic role, maybe what some of his insecurities might be. And there I am playing his father. Well, I felt that way toward him. I just wanted, once I found out how good he was and how truthful of an actor that he was, I was like, oh yeah, I can. And from then on, it was like, how can I hold up a mirror to this young actor to show him all the terrific things that I see in him that I know will make him the Barry Allen for today. And I got to tell you, sometimes we were doing a scene, those beautifully written scenes, Andrew Kreisberg, Greg Berlanti. I can't go through all the Jeff Johns was an executive. So many writers, but the scenes, the father-son scenes, people said, how'd you work up the emotion for those scenes? And I said, we never had a problem. The problem was not letting the emotion run away with you because they were so packed. And there were times when I didn't know if Henry was talking to Barry, if Old Flash was talking to New Flash, or if John was talking to Grant.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And we couldn't do our business because there we are. We're sitting there, all we could do was tell the truth, which for me is the purest form of acting. You make a connection and you tell the truth. I remember once he had a scene where he had to break down and cry, and he had been shooting hours and hours and hours. I came on the set. He looked a mess. And he said, John, I just don't know if I have the juice today. I just don't. I'm not going to be any waterworks. I said, that's the last thing you need to be thinking about. Let's just walk in, take a minute, make a connection, and say the words to each other. And when the time came, man, he was just gone. He was dissolved. It was one of the most special experiences I've ever had with another actor, both because who he is and the setup, the fact that I had played the character, the fact that he was taking it on, the fact that I'm now playing his father, and the fact that the scenes were so beautifully written. It was just, I will always treasure those scenes.
Absolutely. I mean, that's beautiful. That's the stuff that you want to hear. That's the stuff that you believe, because honestly, as only a fan, as only a person that has watched, the scenes between you two as father and son were true. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. And I got daddy issues, right? And I know a lot of people got daddy issues, and you're just
who doesn't?
Oh, you're like, oh God, I just want to hold my dad. And it's so beautiful. And like you said, in a series that was known for flashy and special effects and over the topness, it was always those scenes in particular that were so grounded and so raw and so emotional. And it was just amazing. It was amazing to see the two of you work. It really was. And this is not me blowing smoke. I really think I was a big fan of the Arrowverse, the whole Arrow universe. But I do think Flash really nailed it with the stories, the balancing of fun and silly, but serious and heartfelt. And it was always less about the superhero dramatics and more about the people, the characters.
Who are these people?
Exactly.
What would happen to an ordinary guy if he got extraordinary powers?
Yeah.
This is a conversation I go into with my Q&As. I said, we each of us have a gift that nobody else has. And that if we weren't on this planet, whatever that thing is, that vein of gold, I heard somebody refer to it as, we each have a vein of gold. And if we weren't on the planet, that vein of gold would not be brought into being. And so our purpose is to find out what that is and to serve that purpose to the best of our ability. Well, that's reflected certainly in the story of Barry Allen. Suddenly he has these powers. In my version, he wanted to get rid of them immediately. He didn't want to be a suit. It wasn't like, okay, I've got to be a Hollywood superhero. It's like, I don't want to know from this until my brother's killed. And then it's on. I want to avenge the death of my brother, and what happens? I always felt in the original series, by the way, which has just come out on Blu-ray on June 25th, they went back in. The Warner Archives did a remarkable thing. They didn't just up-res the whole thing. They got the original film and they went scene by scene and did 4K up-reses of the original negatives. Wow. They even went back to the special effects and judged them because they were on film. We originally they were digital, and the lady at Warner Brothers insisted that we put them on, that Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo, our creator, executive producers, writers, directors, wonderful guys. Everything I knew about comics at that time, I learned from them. And they were upset because they were digital effects that looked so cool, but the lady at Warner Brothers insisted that they transfer them to film, which then when it went on the air, it didn't quite look as good as it looked to them originally.
Mm.
But had she not done that, they would not have been able to go in and come up with the Blu-ray, which looks so wonderful. I look at it, I've started watching it again now after 35, 34 years, 33 years, 35, 35, 34. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Um, Math is not my strong suit. Uh, and I'm seeing all the things I never saw before. I'm like, wow, I had no idea all that was going on behind me. You know, it's like, but it's really wonderful. Also the sound, Shirley Walker's beautiful score. We had a 60-piece orchestra scoring our pilot. Our episodes were scored with a 38, 39-piece orchestra. You can hear all that now, and you can see the art direction and everything that they were doing, they were so specific and so careful in doing it. I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but oh, the Blu-ray, and I just happen to have it right here.
Yes, absolutely. I was gonna actually ask you about that. Like, is there any obviously besides the episodes, is there anything that was added in there? Is there any like what can fans expect? Just no commentary, nothing. You got to give us commentary.
No, they spent all the money. I forgot how many millions they spent just on
Wow.
the way they did it, going back to the original negatives, 4K scans of the scene by scene, and they did such a beautiful job. I know Danny Bilson has talked about doing a podcast where various ones of us, we come on and we talk about what was going on during the shooting of some of
That would
those
be amazing.
those episodes. How I would be in the suit for 20 minutes and you'd wring me out. They'd pull the gloves off and they'd be full of sweat up to the wrist, and they just turn the gloves over and dump the sweat out, and all those kinds of things. But yeah, it was a year in my life that when it was 6 o'clock, I didn't know if it was AM or PM. I had no idea.
And I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be wild in just man. There's a lot of layers to this, so I'm imagining that. Like, okay, well, it was short-lived, sure, but there is a passionate fan base for it. It's something that here we are 30 plus years later still talking about. And people like, I want to go back and watch it. I'm having this conversation with you. I want to go back and I want to watch the episodes. Like, how does that feel for you as someone who's like, that was such a small moment in your life, but has become such a large thing in there?
It's nothing I ever expected, because when I came to it, I was very hesitant. When they said they wanted me to audition for this comic book treatment for television, I immediately thought of the way characters had been. I had my 2 Emmys, I'd been on Broadway, I had delusions of being the serious,
Sure.
and I was like, first of all, hey, listen, the 60s Batman series, I was there every week. I loved it. I'm not dissing that at all. It wasn't where my talents or my interests lie. And I remember April Webster, casting director again, talking to me and saying, I said, but April, all my training is in truth of the moment and bringing my personal experience and making things as real and as truthful as I possibly can. She said, that's why we're coming to you. She said, if it were going to be what you're describing, do you think I'd be involved? She said, do me a favor. Just read Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo's hour-and-a-half initial movie that kicked off the series. She said, just read it, and then we'll talk. And I'm reading this script where this unblessed son of a cop family, where real cops work the streets, right? And his older brother is his dad's favorite. But I go to the crime lab so that my mom might not have to, she wouldn't have to be afraid that all of the men in her family might not come home that night, And so I was CSI before CSI was cool, though, And, but I'm in the crime lab, Mom says, be careful. Dad says, what's he going to do? Stub his toe in a footprint, And then he gets these powers. that would make his dad so proud, and he can't tell him. Once his brother, that wonderful scene with Emmett Walsh and I by my older brother, who is named Jace, after he gets killed by the motorcycle gang. And I tell him, Dad, I'm going to go after those guys. I'm going to get those guys. And he says, Barry, how many times have I told you, don't point a gun unless you have a bullet in the chamber? And I'm like, I've got the bullet, but I can't tell him what it is. Well, by now I'm totally hooked, into this character. And I said, yeah, sure. I'll audition for this. And that's how it happened.
It's incredible, man. I got goosebumps over here, man. You're killing me. So when you come back and you're now doing the CW stuff, was there ever a moment that you like a heart to heart with Grant and just like let me tell you about putting on the suit? Like did he ever ask you for advice or anything like that about the old stuff?
I was asked the same question when I played Dawson's dad on Dawson's Creek. Do you give advice to the young cast? And my response is always the same. Oh God, I hope not. Because that would have been insufferable. I was there for him. The only thing I ever encouraged him to do that first season, when they were still gluing his mask to his face, they stopped. They figured out a way not to have to do that. And he was so hot. At one point, they had a cooling tent for him, and he's leaning against the wall, and he's like sweating. I said, man, go to your cooling tent. He said, yeah, but everybody's over here, and I'll be in there alone. I said, I'll go with you. So we went over there. And of course, he's so exhausted. We sit down across from each other, and within 5 minutes, he's asleep. Because he had been sleeping, and so finally he woke up. But that's the only thing. I did say something also first season to the ADs, assistant directors, when they were mapping out the work for a future shoot, and they would have us, they'd have a double, and they'd have a stunt person, and the person playing the Flash in the Flash has a lot of work to do, and they were talking about a long distance shot, a running action shot that was a wide shot that was in the distance. You wouldn't be able to tell who was in the suit. So they said, I overheard them, and they were like, should we use a double for that? And they said, Grant can do it. And I said, if I may, if you want your lead to survive this season, anytime it's possible to put a double in the suit, do it. Because it's just between Barry Allen and then the Flash. It's a dual role, And I know as hard as it was for me making it physically through that season. I remember at the beginning, I think I did my first Barry Allen scenes after I'd been in the suit for 12 hours. And it was like 2 a.m. And then I had been the Flash. And so then they pulled me out of the suit, 2 a.m, and I'm Barry Allen. I was like, dude, let's try not to do that again. And then they go Barry Flash, which meant they were putting the glue on. They were taking the glue off. I was raw, I was breaking out from all the sweat in the suit because they couldn't clean them. $100,000 in 1990 to build 4 suits. And they would hang them in my trailer and spray them with Lysol, And I said, we finally had to lay some ground rules. I said, let's try to do the Barry Allen scenes first, then the Flash scenes. If you absolutely have to, do the Flash scenes and then but don't go Barry Flash, because, it was killing me. So I tried to help, to answer your question, in the CW show, little ways like that. If I heard something, because they didn't know. They're like, oh, it's easier, let Grant do it. Anytime you can take the pressure off of him, incredible. Do it.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. I'm so glad you did, because it makes sense. Why wear your guy out? He's the star. I mean, he's the Flash. You got to protect the Flash. And speaking
I have to tell you this one story about that, because him being the Flash and being number 1 on the call sheet, and watching him assume and come to an understanding of what being number one on the call sheet meant beyond just playing the part, the responsibility. This is your show, and all the ramifications and responsibilities that come with that. But there was this one day, we were working all day. We had this huge scene, Jay Garrick and Barry Allen. And he had gotten a glimpse that maybe Iris was going to be killed. And we had this big confrontation. And, we weren't supposed to shoot it till the following week, but we had bad weather. They said, guess what? You're shooting that scene in 3 hours. And I said, what do you mean? We have no time to study it. I'm sorry, there's no other scene we can go to. We have to, And so we're together waiting to do the scene that we had to do that day. And he's like, we have to do that big scene today. And I said, yeah, I know. He said, I was hoping you would say no. Grant says to me. I looked at him and I said, Grant, you're number one on the call sheet. And he said, but you're John Wesley Shipp. I said, well, that's very sweet. It's very endearing, but man, this is your show. I am guesting on your show, but we got through it. But I thought it was fascinating to watch him brilliantly assume the role, both as an actor and as a character, to work his way. When they first cast him, people said, daytime TV audiences are the same. They're like, he's too young. I said, well, make the show a hit. 4 years, he won't be too young. Oh, he played a bad guy on Glee. He can't play a superhero. I said, well, when I got to The Flash, I had 2 Emmys playing psychotics. Oh, it's a tradition. Oh, tradition. Oh, all right. Yeah. And they say, well, the suit isn't big. It's too thin. I said, think about it aerodynamically. This is 2014. The dude's thing is speed, So, get with the program. Yeah. 24 years ago, we were in the Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco, Arnold Schwarzenegger post, steroid hangover. Everything had to be bigger than life. But this is a new way. And you better make it a hit if you want it to stay on the air and you want it to develop. So to the degree that I could contribute in that way, I did.
I mean, and I mean, to your point, I mean, think Olympians, right? Like they're wearing the skin tight and even the bike riders have like the helmet that's pointed and like it's all aerodynamic, right? It's all, gotta go fast. So I love what they did on that show and how it was represented. Last thing about the CW version anyway, here we are, what's about the 10th anniversary of when it first premiered. What do you think, given, where you started with the character, this show, obviously DC did a movie version that was different. And now that, there's obviously a future of that, I'm sure the character will be brought back and there'll be a future for it. What do you feel is the legacy of this show for audiences, for The Flash, for you? I mean, talk about that for a minute.
Of which show? Of the CW
show. Yeah,
the current one?
10 years
well,
past.
I think, Grant clearly, by virtue of the fact that he did it for 9 seasons. It's like I told people it took me 24 years to get a second season. They all did 9 seasons. I tell them I did 10 seasons. Yeah. But I think he sort of redefined how we look at the role. And the fact that he was 10 years younger than I was when I did it, also lended to the wonderful vulnerability that he was able to portray so that we could really get inside of who this guy is. Because I always felt my job is to play Barry Allen. That's my primary job. And to make him real enough and relatable enough so that people would identify with me, so that when I went into the suit, y'all would come with me. And then, the Danny Elfman theme would come, the Shirley Walker music, the special effects, the music, the lighting effect, and there were inside the suit and y'all are with me looking from inside out to the world out there. That was always what I felt. And I think Grant, in by virtue of the truth of his performance, uh, I think he definitely has put his stamp on the character. No, I'm amazing. I'm amazed how many people still relate to my Barry Allen, which this is the 34th anniversary on September 20th of it premiering on CBS. And still talk about specific granular things that I did in my characterization. And everybody has their favorites. But I think the legacy of the CW show is that I would say, people say, well, who do you think is the best Flash? I said, well, all I can say is Grant Gustin is my Flash, you know. And so to that extent, I think he's really put a stamp on it. We were completely different. We didn't do serialized drama. We didn't have a large cast that had quite as much serialized drama. Danny and Paul wanted to do an hour movie a week. That was their template, so that you could come in and you could watch it and you could have a full experience. We were also dark. We were darker than the CW show. I mean, at one point I'm mind controlled by the trickster. I'm catching bullets and throwing bullets back at the police. You know, I mean, there were some things that we did that as I'm rewatching it, my TV's over here. That's why I'm looking over there. I'm rewatching it and I'm going, wow, I can't believe we got away with that. You know, that stuff that we would not be able to get away with doing today. So they're two very different shows built around the same character, but to be brought back in and to be, I don't mean Joe the elevator repair guy and the camera goes by and you go, wait, didn't he used to play the Flash?
Cameo, yeah.
To come in and contribute first as Henry Allen. And I didn't know they were going to turn me into Jay Garrick until practically a couple weeks before they did it. And then I'm Jay Garrick. And then they bring my 1990 Flash back for Crisis and give me a completion to my storyline. It's nothing I ever expected. And I am mindful of my good fortune. And I'm very grateful because all those producers, they grew up on the David Nutter, Emmy Award-winning director who directed our pilot in many episodes. You know, they all grew up on the 1990s. That was the only live-action Flash for 24 years, as I've said. So, you know, it was. I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway.
No, I mean you nailed it. You nailed it absolutely. And in honor of too, or in promoting the Blu-ray, I know you're going to be at New York Comic Con in October. It's one of my favorite conventions to be at. Is there anything specific you're really excited for? Or do they have a plan for you? Are you doing something specific or just
I have been invited to be at a comic book vendor booth.
Nice.
So I'll be with the comic book artists whom I love and respect. I always go. Joe Stanton drew me a Jay Garrick for me at Mitch Halleck's Terrificon, you know, several years ago that I have hanging in there. Brett Breeding did an inking of my 1990 Flash. I have that on the wall. You know, I go up to these guys and I say thank you because if it weren't for you guys, there would be no us. You know, so I'm gonna be doing that. I'll be in Chattanooga in October, and I have a series of things that I can't announce yet, which may or may not include the rest of the Flash cast also at the same time, and may or may not be occurring in cities like, San Francisco, Edmonton, Orlando, but they haven't been announced yet. This is all speculation on my part.
Speculative. We're just it's hypotheticals at this point. You know,
it
could be.
That's purely hypothetical.
You know, I know another one is that you're doing a play, right? Or did you just finish it? Sorry, I'm like,
I just did it. That's okay, man. Thanks for bringing it up. Thanks for knowing about it.
of
No,
course.
we did a staged reading of Tracy Letts' play Superior Donuts. Tracy Letts is the Pulitzer Prize winning playwright who wrote August Osage County, which people might know. It's beautiful writing. We had a great cast of 9 terrific actors, and we did it at the Fairfield Theater in Fairfield, Connecticut. And it developed into so much more than a staged reading by virtue of the people that we have. I've been lucky that I've worked with people who aren't like, oh, I'm going to do this. You talked about it, collect a paycheck, but everybody wanting to bring everything that we possibly can to whatever project you're working on. And this is what I said. I've been in the Tony Award winning play on Broadway, Dancing at Lunasa. I've been in prime time. I've done daytime TV, independent film. I approach every character I play, I don't care what it is, with the same seriousness. You know, I don't go, oh, you know, I'm moonlighting on, you know, whatever, you know, no, because the fun is really digging in and getting involved. And at the Q&A afterwards, because it all takes place at a rundown donut shop. You know, my character, my family started it 60 years ago on my birthday in the north side of Chicago. I got to work with an accent, which I love. And the events that happen with all this cast member in the shop, and one audience member in the Q&A said, I could see that donut shop. He said, man, I knew where the counter was. I could see the crumbs on the floor. I could taste those. You know, when you get feedback like that, you know, it's really, really, really gratifying. And so, yeah, I try to keep a foot in theater.
I'm gonna say,
Yeah.
is there anything that you're? I mean, I don't want to hold you any longer than I need to, but I'm always curious. Is there anything? Is there a bucket list kind of thing? Is there anything that you're dying to, you know, a musical or you know a scary movie or like what's on the list of that you'd love to get, you know, a chance at?
I just want to play interesting parts. You know, I've been asked that my entire career, and I've never had, I specifically want to do this. Although, when I got to the end of The Flash, I thought it would be cool to do theater. I'd love for it to be on Broadway. If it were a period piece, it would be great. And I'd love to work with an accent. I ended up playing a Welshman in a cast where everyone was doing Donegal Irish, but I was doing Welsh accent so well at sometimes that the stage manager says, okay, now you're doing the accent so well, nobody can understand what you're saying. So you need to back off. And so that was set in the 1930s in Wales, and that manifested. But as I sit here right now, I'm like, I just want to work with good people and do interesting projects. You know, I have my awards. I have a Sovis Award for a radio drama that I did by David Gregory called Powder Burns, where I play a blind sheriff in the Old West in the late 1800s. Now, get this, it's a radio drama, and the idea is see the Old West the way Sheriff Burns does without sight. And it's very atmospheric. Man, we had Robert Vaughn, we had Ed Asner, it was a great cast. It's called Powder Burns, and it can be found, I think, on YouTube now, Powder Burns Western. It's like 6 episodes of an audio drama, and it's really cool. Won a Sovis Award for that. You know, I'm comfortable enough that I can do what I want to do, and I don't have to do what I don't want to do. And so I'm sort of like, man, let's just see what comes next.
Living the
You
dream,
know?
man. Living the dream. Oh, love it. Okay. I like I said, I don't want to let you or hold you any longer than I have to, but this has been absolutely incredible. I want to give you the last few seconds here. say what's on your mind, say what's on your heart, talk to the audience, say goodnight, all of that. Social media, where can they follow you? How can they support you? All that stuff.
My Instagram, I keep strictly for family, personal entertainment. So that's the place to follow me if you don't want to be subjected to my very fine opinions on Twitter. But I'm verified on Instagram. I'm verified on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter, but that gets very contentious. And I just recently started TikToking. So there's that. But I do want to say one thing, and I haven't shared this before, but I'll share it for this audience. Most of this last year, at the end of last summer, I discovered that I had prostate cancer. And so I had prostate cancer surgery in September. And then after that, I had radiation and the hormone therapy. I'm through it now. I'm cancer free. But I just want to tell everybody and all the guys out there, go get your PSAs tested. Because if I hadn't caught it when I did, and they did the biopsy and the scans, it could have killed me, So I just want everybody to make sure you go get your PSAs checked. If your PSAs are high, get a biopsy, take care of yourself. It's totally curable. I'm proof, but this is going to go everywhere now because this is the first time I have ever said that at the radio, at the level of press, radio, or film.
I'm incredibly honored that you would share that here. Thank you. I think that's an incredible. I just turned 40 myself, so I know it's time to start doing some screenings and getting some things checked. I will heed your advice.
Don't play with that stuff, man.
Yeah, we're so happy that you're still here. So glad that you're with us. This has been just the highlight of my career so far. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. Follow him, support him, check out all the things. Buy the Flash complete series on Blu-ray. It's out there. Get it. This has been the incredible John Wesley Shipp. I'll let you say goodnight to the audience, and then we'll toss it to a break.
Good night. Thank you all. Thanks for listening.
Outstanding. All right, guys, we'll be back with more right after this.